Yo, welcome back to Herbistry420. I'm your host 40. Excuse the getup, yo. I buy stupid things sometimes. This outfit is one of them, and then I look for reasons to wear them. And right now was a good idea, I thought, right? I'm not a doctor, but I'll take a look. Anyways, enough of the jokes, baby. Let me take this off and let's get started. Today we're going to talk about how to calculate edible dosage, right? I probably should have done this video a long time ago, but the reality is there's a lot of resources for this available, but I keep getting asked this question, so I said, let's make the video, baby. So let's begin. I have a whiteboard right here, and actually this is take 2, that's why it's already been scrub erased, etc. And I thought, you know what, let me try to explain it differently this time. We're going to talk about a real-world example, making brownies, for example. Let's say that I have 10 grams of cannabis. I'm going to write up at the top of my board 10G. If I want to convert that into milligrams, I would times it by 1,000. So I'm taking 10 grams times 1,000, and that's giving me 10,000 milligrams. So I'm trying not to stare at the board as I talk, because anyways, this is with you guys, right? That 10,000 milligrams is not of THC. We have to take the THC content that we know and multiply it here. So for example, if our 10 grams of flour came in at 20%, then we would take that 10,000 milligrams, right? And we times it by 20%, or 0.2, right? So 10,000 times 0.2 gives us 2,000 milligrams of THC, right? Excuse my handwriting, clearly I do not write very much anymore. It's always typing on the computer. So now we have 2,000 milligrams of THC. Is that the total THC of our infusion? It is not, because in the decarboxylation process and the infusion process, we are going to lose some weight of the THC, and it's generally agreed that's about 20%. That 20% is not a flat number or an all-the-time number, etc. There are factors that are involved. How you decarb your cannabis is one of them, right? How you infuse, how long you infuse for, at what temperature you infuse for. All these things will determine how much THC is lost in the process. But for this example, we're going to say you lose 20%. So if we want to find out what 20% loss is of 2,000 milligrams, we would take 2,000 milligrams and times it by 0.8 to give us 80% of that result, right? So 2,000 milligrams times 0.8 equals 1,600 milligrams of THC in our infusion, right? The one thing that we didn't say right here is, what are we infusing this to? Let's say in this particular example, it's butter. I took 500 milliliters of butter and I infused it with 10 grams of cannabis at 20% THC. So I'm going to say right here, 500 milliliters of butter, which is like 2 cups, right? Oops. My writing is atrocious, guys. I apologize. So if we took that 10 grams of cannabis, that's 20% THC, and infused it into 500 milliliters or 2 cups of butter, then we would be left with 2 cups of butter that is equivalent of 1,600 milligrams of THC. Let's say that the recipe that you're using says use 1 cup of butter. So I'm going to take 1 cup of butter, or 250 milliliters of butter, or 250 ml of butter, and if in this particular example, if we use 500 milliliters for the infusion, which gave us 1,600 milligrams of total potency, then half of that, or 250 milliliters of that 500 milliliters, would be half of the potency, right? So in this particular situation, 1 cup of butter would be 800 milligrams of THC. So 1 cup equal to 800 milligrams of THC. Now let's say in your recipe it calls for a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup, or let's say 1/2 cup for easier numbers. A 1/2 cup would be 400 milligrams of THC. Or maybe it calls for a cup and you don't want to use 800 milligrams of THC. You want to use 400. Then use 1/2 cup of infused butter along with 1/2 cup of regular butter, not infused. That way you could get the potency you want. So, but let's use, in this example, we used 1 cup of butter at 800 milligrams of THC, and that equated to making, let's say, 10 brownies. Let's say, we're just using easy numbers so I can do the math in my head, right? If it made 10 brownies, right, and the total potency, because we used 1 cup of butter, was 800 milligrams, we would take 800 and we would divide it by 10. So 10 servings And so we take 800 divided by 10 equals 80 milligrams per brownie, right? If this is what we're making per brownie. I swear I could write, or at least I used to be able to, right? So let's go over this one more time. We started with 10 grams of cannabis flower, right? We times it by 1,000 to give us 10,000 milligrams of cannabis. Because it's 20% THC, we took that 10,000 milligrams, timed it by 0.2, and it gave us 2,000 milligrams of THC. We took that and we multiplied it by 0.8 to adjust for the loss of THC during the decarboxylation process as well as the infusion process. That gave us 1,600 milligrams. That 1,600 milligrams of THC we infused into 500 milliliters of butter. Because we only used 1 cup of butter, we took half of that potency, which then made that 1 cup of butter be equal to 800 milligrams. Again, if we wanted to use half that, so 400 milligrams, we would use half a cup of that butter and a half a cup of non-infused butter, right? But in this scenario, we used the full amount, and that made 800 milligrams at 10 brownies. We divided 800 by 10 and left us with 80 milligram brownies. This is the math, guys. If you use one of these edible calculators, like for example, the one at www.scientificedibles.com, their calculations are different. They account for a larger loss. In fact, when you select it to be infused into alcohol or butter or oil, etc., it doesn't change your end result potency, which is interesting because they all have different efficiency rates when it comes to infusion. So, but they will say that if you took that 10 grams of cannabis, that's 20% THC, it would say if you infuse it to alcohol, butter, etc., it would give you, if you decarbed in the oven, around 1,350 or something like that milligrams. If you decarbed in a mason jar and crock pot, it says it will give you about 1,400 something milligrams of THC. The point that I'm trying to make is whether you do the math yourself or you follow one of these online calculators, there are some variables to keep in mind. And so even though we're saying right now that each of these brownies are 80 milligrams, the reality is they could be slightly less because maybe we infuse for a longer period of time. Maybe we decarbed in the oven instead of a mason jar or a crock pot. There's a lot of variables. But by using this general math, you should be able to come out with the dosages that are very close for whatever you're infusing. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I hope this video was useful. If it was, please like, share, subscribe. You know the deal, baby. Till next time.